Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Sports Talk 920. I am your host, Michael Goodman. Still doing shows at weird hours here. We're about 1 o'clock. We have the noon game starting in the NFL. We had a great day of college football yesterday, albeit that the Wisconsin Badgers lost. Talk a little bit more about that, too. But probably just having a little short show here this week, or podcast, or whatever you want to call it nowadays. And we do also have the great NASCAR race at Kansas going on today with Matt Kenseth on the pole. So we'll be sure to keep an eye out on that as well. But anyway, going to the heartbreaking loss last week by the Wisconsin Badgers, led for most of the game. And albeit the Ohio State Buckeyes came back and eventually won the game in overtime by a final score of 30-20 or 29-23 or 30-23. Correct. Now there was an extra point kicked. So what does that mean for the Badgers? Well, it's going to be a long road for the Badgers too. I think to even get to the playoff hunt. Obviously, and even maybe to even get into the Big Ten championship game now. I think they are a better team than teams like the Nebraska Cornhuskers and also, even the Iowa Hawkeyes, who did get a win, this past weekend too against Purdue. They do play these teams. They can they'll probably leapfrog over Iowa because I think they will beat them. They play next week, and I don't think they got quote unquote beat up too bad today, as some people were saying, or yesterday when they played the Buckeyes. But still, I think it might be hard to hoping that Nebraska loses 2 games as well. But I think it's kind of bad, just missed opportunities that this team probably could have had. I think the offensive line for the Badgers, kind of that smaller type that Gary Anderson wanted. So you're not quite getting the old corn-fed line that normally protects the Badgers quarterbacks and running backs, stuff like that. But still, I think a good effort. I think with the Badgers too, they also put themselves maybe on a little bit of a map. Kind of looking back at that Michigan game, they might have done that with some people too. And even going back before that, the Michigan State win. Every week, especially this past week when Northwestern beat Michigan State, it might have downplayed, maybe that win a little bit, just how poorly they're playing. Michigan State's playing over the past few weeks, and then going back to the Michigan game, a few weeks ago, I think you just look at it and it was such a poorly played game for both teams that it was maybe kind of hard to gauge what was what there, and maybe how good this team really is. So, partly, proud of the effort of the Badgers to make it a game against one of the better teams in the country, but still very sad that the Badgers really couldn't capitalize on the game either. But we'll see what happens next week when Wisconsin plays Iowa and hopefully gets back on track in their winning ways. Now, the Badgers losing 2 straight, but 2 straight losses that again, I think at this point of the season, being 4-2, maybe you were thinking maybe they'd be, a lot of people were thinking that they could be 2-4 at this point, and then maybe they could run the table after this. So being 4-2 is still, I think, still not too bad, but you just got to wonder what could have been. We do have Tom Brady's back in action, at Foxborough, so that's craziness too. We do have one score. The Lions already put up a touchdown against the Los Angeles Rams, and right now I'm just watching the NFL Red Zone. Gotta love that. And Tennessee looks like they just scored too. Against the Cleveland Browns. A big run by Marcus Mariota early in this game. But one game that going on later today, the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be probably a pretty big game for both teams. And, a lot of teams jumping on the Cowboys bandwagon after, they did get that 28-14 win last week against Cincinnati at home, and then the Packers too. And people are writing down the Packers basically because their offense hasn't been performing as well as it maybe should or has in the past, but they're still putting up decent amount of points. And again, when you're having Aaron Rodgers, having such a low completion percentage, and not a lot of yards, blah blah blah. His statistics are low. You are talking about Aaron Rodgers. It's something I don't think you're going to see happen for the rest of the season. At a drop of a hat, I think, Aaron Rodgers could probably even start in the first quarter, going 0 for 10, but then, he's a guy that can turn around and go, 10 for 10 to finish the game or half or whatever. I think, too much is written on, the poor statistics, per se, and really a team that's 3-1 and really almost had a chance to beat the best team in football right now in the Minnesota Vikings. I think this team's getting a lot of downplay of how good or bad this team, or how good this team I think is. When you look at maybe some like the Cowboys opponents either that they've played relatively well, but so far I think the best notch they have on their belt is the Cincinnati Bengals, and I just think something's off with that team right now too, and so I'm not saying that this means the Packers are going to roll all over them. I think it's going to be a close, tight game today, but I think with the Kaepernick's off, I think with the Packers defense, they're number one against the run. I don't think they're going to look as great as they have in the past because there is a little bit of that point where the Packers really haven't played anyone that could run the ball that well. I mean, you even look at Adrian Peterson, but you looked at what he was doing up to that point of the season as well. You could say that he wasn't playing that great, so I don't think it was that big of a shock that they held him. But the statistic, I guess, that surprised me through this point of the season for the Green Bay Packers run defense is that they only allowed 2 rushes for more than 10 yards. So I think if they can at least contain him, prevent him from getting those big plays, I think the Packers can easily win. Albeit that banged up secondary. I don't know if Randall's back, but Shields is going to be still out today, so that could hurt them as well. But we'll see what happens from there. Other than that, I don't really have a whole heck of a lot to talk about this week. I kind of did it late. We went out for the game last night. Had a few too many brews, so a little bit hungover doing the show here today, and we'll see how I feel here. But I don't know if I'm gonna make it a whole lot longer. I'm spitting and sputtering right now. So without further ado, I think I'm just gonna keep this to probably about a 8-minute show here. Probably works. But hopefully next week we'll get back on. We'll get Rudy back on. I know it's been a while. This week again, it was my fault for not getting Rudy on. So hopefully in the upcoming weeks we'll get him on here and more, and we can have more in-depth conversation. But until next time, I'm your host Michael Goodman. You can follow us all week long on Twitter at ST920 at twitter.com and on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ST920. And, of course, on our blog at sportstalk920.blogspot.com. So enjoy your football, racing, and whatever other sports they'll be on today that you might be watching. Baseball, and how about those Cubs? One in the ALCS. It's their year, unfortunately. But anyway, until next time, thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Sports Talk 920. Good day now.